Alrighty, so here we go again. So today we're going to be discussing the difference between a car and a motor vehicle. Okay. There has been so many debates going around regarding what is classified as a motor vehicle, what's the definition, etc., etc. Now, there are always two worlds around us, one on paper and one in reality. Okay? Undoubtedly, the one on paper is more dangerous because the one on paper can give someone authority to do something, whereas in reality, no one can just get up and have authority over another person. And I use the word person in the sense and definition of a man and a woman. We're all equal, but on paper we're not. Okay, so that's how powerful paper is. Now, on top of that, here we're going to be discussing first, what is a car? Okay, a car is what you purchase, what you get from a dealer, what you get from an automotive lot. It's an automobile. Okay, an auto, meaning some kind of mechanical device. Mobile, mobile, moving. It takes you from one place to the next, or moves from one place to the next. Okay. A car is just a small word to describe a car. Describe a mechanical device that we use just about every day in society, right? So when you go to a lot, they don't say a vehicle lot. They don't say a motor vehicle lot. You ever wonder why that is? Why don't they just say, these are vehicles? Nobody says that when you're going to go buy a car. They say, hey, do you like this car? Do you like this model? Do you like this automobile? You'll never hear the word vehicle at an auto dealership or any other place that you buy cars and they have a display. The reason for that is, that's exactly what it is. Cars are in the private. Okay? Private cars are not vehicles. And I'll explain that to you a little bit more as we go along. So, when you go to a dealership or a car lot, and you're buying a car, it is a car. It is not registered to the state. It is not belonging to any specific entity. It is simply being held there until an owner purchases it. Now, where a lot of people go wrong is they go purchase a car, sign all the documentation, and they let the dealership handle all those so-called back-end paperwork. And that's where many of us have put our inheritance in the fire. Whenever a company or an individual says to you, oh yeah, we'll do all the paperwork, we'll send everything over to DMV, and you'll get your stuff in the mail. Here's a temporary tag, you can put this on the car for now. Or you can get a temporary tag at DMV. You tell them, give me the documents, give me everything, and I will go do it myself. Okay? Don't ever let the dealership send or ship away your stuff. I mean, that's up to you still, but that's what I would do. I would say, hey, you know what? Give me everything, and I will do the proper processes as soon as possible. That's your right. It's your car. You just purchased it, right? So they have no authority to tell you what to do with it and what to do with the paperwork that comes with it. Okay? So that's a car, and when you purchase it, it is still a car. So now you might be wondering, okay, so when does a vehicle come in? Well, your car gets converted into a vehicle when you go to the DMV and you go register it. That's right. registering your car is a conversion process. It is not only changing what the definition of your mechanical device is, it is also giving up ownership of that vehicle to the state in return for privileges, which I highly doubt anyone thinks they're getting a privilege from the state in regards to a car, because who wants to be pulled over by the police? Who wants to be harassed and questioned? Who wants to be treated like a criminal before you even get to stand up in front of a judge? Who wants to battle anything in court? That's why a lot of people just pay. They just pay because they don't want the hassle. They don't want to have to deal with a police officer, right? And a lot of people fight back too, but I'm of the proponent of try to find a way where you don't have to fight or don't fight much, okay? That's how I look at things. But anyways, when you go to the DMV and you register your car, it is now considered a vehicle. That is what the state defines cars as. There is no longer a definition of cars. So, therefore, you have to go by the definition of how they describe your new vehicle. And once you register your car, it becomes a vehicle. Now you're subjected to all the codes and everything that comes with the restrictions of that registration, including the restriction of your license. And that's why you need a license. Because if you did not register your car, that means that you're not operating in commerce. That's what the conversion is for. From a private car to a commercial vehicle. Yes, I know people are going to say, well, they have CDLs. That's what it's for, commercial driver's license. My license doesn't say commercial driver's license. Here we go down the rabbit hole. Okay. The definition of a license, and go look it up in any legal dictionary, it will say something to the effect of, a license is the privilege or the authority to do something that would otherwise be considered illegal or immoral. So that means you're doing something unlawful, and that license is allowing you to do that unlawful thing for a fee. That's why you have to keep paying for a registration. You have to keep paying for a license fee. You have to keep paying for all these things because you're paying to break the law. And as a criminal, that's how they treat you on the road. I know it's starting to click for you now. I can sense it. That's right. They treat you like a criminal because you are. Unknowingly. Right? They trick you by TV and you following what everyone else is doing because they seem to be fine. But when you see random stops by the police, this is why. They can harass anyone they want because you're all criminals. Okay. So now that we got that out of the way, let's take a look at some evidence of what I'm talking about. Right? So let's take a look at the evidence, right? If we go to a case called Weaver versus Public Service Commission, and you do Control F on your keyboard, that's Control CTRL, you hold it down and you tap F for Frank, it'll bring up the search bar. And you can type in, and here I've typed in travel, right? Just to go to the relevant portions of what we want to get to. And here, the judge is speaking. The judge says the right, and this is quoting here. It says, thus it was said in Ex parte Dickey 76 WVA, blah, blah, blah. It says the right of a citizen to travel. And this is why I highlighted this. Okay? They did not say drive. Okay? As a matter of fact, let's read a little bit above here so we get full context, because sometimes you take a piece of something and you try to use it and it doesn't really mesh into the conversation. So let's just read through this a little bit so we get some full context of what we're talking about, okay? So number 2 here says, Counsel for the Public Service Commission, brushing aside his frequent reference to pretending private carriers, in effect contends that the state has broad and comprehensive powers to regulate the use of highways, that the legislative act in question has done so, and that plaintiff is subject to the provisions of that act even though he is a private carrier. Again, if you went through the DOT process, you'll see this private carrier term quite often going through your stuff. And this is what you should be, a private carrier. You're privately carrying your own stuff. You're not getting paid to travel around or to have someone, even as a passenger. It's not really a passenger. It's like, so you're not getting paid to travel, period. So you're a private carrier, okay? As already stated in Section 1 of the Act, the term transportation company applies to any person or corporation operating any motor vehicle. Again, here's the term, any motor vehicle, registered vehicle, used in the business of transportation of persons or property by contract or agreement for compensation. Very important. Let me read that again. Excuse me. As already stated in Section 1 of the Act, the term transportation company applies to any person or corporation operating any motor vehicle and used in the business of transportation of persons or property by contract or agreement for compensation, meaning getting paid, or as a common carrier for compensation, getting paid over any public highway in this state between fixed termini or over regular or irregular routes. Some of the courts have been hesitant to construe legislative acts containing similar language as applying to private carriers. Example, State versus Smith. So this is the court again showing you the distinction. A private carrier is not the same as people operating a motor vehicle. So let's go down here to the meat and potatoes. Here it says in this ex parte communication, the right of a citizen to travel. Traveling is completely different from driving. You travel in a car, you travel in an automobile. You do not travel in a vehicle. Keep that in mind. The right of a citizen to travel upon the highway and transport his property thereon in the ordinary course of life and business differs radically and obviously from that of one whom makes the highway his place of business and uses it for private gain in the running of a stagecoach or omnibus. The former is the usual and ordinary right of a citizen, a right common to all. Okay? The former, this here, where you can travel on the highways and the byways transporting your own property without fee. Okay? While the latter, which is the last part of this thing, right? Making it a place of business where you're charging people to do services as a driver, right? So, while the latter is special, unusual, and extraordinary. So, Uber drivers, Lyft drivers, truck drivers, anybody getting paid to drive, that's an unusual, special, and extraordinary thing to do on a highway. In other words, it's illegal. So you get a license to do that. As the former, the extent of legislative power is that of regulation, but as to the latter, its power is broader. The right may be wholly denied, or it may be permitted to some and denied to others, because of its extraordinary nature. Okay. The streets and highways belong to the public, the collective, the people. They are built and maintained at public expense for the use of the general public in the ordinary and customary manner. The state and the city, as an arm of the state, has absolute control of the streets in the interest of the public. No private individual or corporation has a right to the use of the streets in the prosecution of the business of a common carrier for private gain without the consent of the state, nor except upon the terms and conditions prescribed by the state or municipality, as the case may be. All right, I'm not going to go into too much more detail there, but as you can see, you have the right to travel, but only in your car, not in a vehicle.